Here's what I'll say. Potential episode title for this session. This episode, this book almost broke up the Anidor.
What? You don't like rhubarb's or Barbara's rhubarb bar?
This book, dude, I'm telling you, like, we have had, this is cursed. This is cursed. This is fucking, it's called book 13 for a reason.
Wait, what's wrong with Barbara's rhubarb bar?
Can I tell you, we have talked about the book and the podcast being cursed during book 11. Book 12, I guess also book 12, and the Light Chronicles was absolutely the cursed episode, the cursed book, if there was one. And now
it was also 3 books.
That's true.
I think we're just cursed. You're right.
I don't think so. I think this is going well compared to...
Really? All right, cool.
I didn't think it was going that badly until Chris decided to say that we were shitty and they don't want to be our friend anymore.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
I did say that. And frankly, at this point, I'm so bought into the concept, I kind of have to double down.
Is Chris cursed? Is that?
Oh.
What'd you say?
Are you crying? How could you not?
Are you crying? Is that what you said? Because what you said was, are you cursed? But what you repeated was, are you crying?
Are you crying?
What, are you crying?
What, are you crying? In 1996, Scholastic began publishing Animorphs. Over the next 6 years, Catherine Applegate and her husband, Michael Grant, under the pseudonym K.A. Applegate, produced 54 main series books, several spin-offs, and inspired a TV series, graphic novels, and a cult following. We can't tell you where we live. We can't even tell you our last names. But we can tell you our thoughts and feelings on this series, book by book. I'm Miranda.
I'm Eddie.
And I'm Chris.
And we are the Anidorks.
These may be kids' books, but we discuss dark themes and mature content. There may also be some explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Chris doesn't want to be here anymore, so I think we should just...
I want to finish the book.
So, what? I don't think we're gonna, bud.
I know. I just...
You want to finish the book this episode?
I think we could, but not if you want to end at 9:30.
Miranda, what do you think?
Well, no, obviously we can't if we want to end at 9:30. That's now.
No, we don't have to end at 9:30. Do you think we can get through?
I think depending on how late everyone's willing to go, yeah,
I think we could.
We could do it by 11, but I don't know that everybody wants to be here until 11.
No, I think we could do it by like 10:15.
Okay, we can give it a shot.
And
I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Let's try it. Okay.
So, chapter 20. The raccoon prepares to eat Tobias. Tobias panics, believing he is about to die. The Elemist interjects, asking Tobias if he wants to claim his reward now. Tobias says, yes, of course.
Right, yeah.
Use your power, the Elemist says. Tobias uses his talon to absorb the raccoon's DNA, not the whole raccoon, causing it to go into a trance.
Very good save.
The attack shot earlier with the bobcat absorbed the bobcat.
Tobias begins to morph. He races to his friends as a raccoon, but realizes he'll never make it in time on his little cute fat legs. He returns to his hawk morph, realizing that now he can heal himself, just like the other Animorphs.
Well, and that he has healed himself.
Right. He healed his broken wing by morphing to a complete raccoon and then morphing back to a complete hawk.
It surprised me that Tobias had to think through that he wasn't sure if he would heal. I feel like the healing, I guess he hasn't morphed in a while, but I felt like the healing powers of morphing have been long established. No?
We don't usually see it as an injury in your base form.
We did talk about
We usually see you get injured in morph and then morph back.
Yeah, because we used to joke about it being wild shape, which like in D&D, you only heal from damage you took as you were an animal, and then you go back. But this is officially canon now. I mean, it's like, it's in there. It's if we are to believe that to be a Nothlit is to make your base form different, and if it is possible to be given the technology again, I mean, Elemist Intervention did it, but also nobody around us has the technology to give it again.
That's true.
Who knows? If the Andalites ever actually do show up, which I have a feeling they might not in this series, but if they ever actually do show up, then maybe they could just give a bird a chance to morph again.
If they think the bird is worthy.
I'll tell you what, though. The fact that they have a word for someone stuck in morph, it does not bode
Not a
well.
great sign.
Yeah. Yeah, we've just learned that Tobias is now officially
Morphable.
like that morphable, but also
Morph capable.
from the onus of bird. Exactly. Right. From the locus of bird.
Here's what I wondered, and I know we're getting into all these like circumstantial things, but not the actual scene. Did either of you think that he may have retained all of the morphs he had from when?
I thought he would.
Why would
I've
he
thought
have
about that.
Then I thought
DNA?
it probably doesn't make sense. Like, it's probably, he probably had his slate wiped clean when he became an Athlet.
Man, yeah. And thinking about that, it's like you have all your other morphs hanging out in Z space, right? Because like when Rachel was allergic to the croc, it was just a couple feet away from her at all times, being out in Z space or whatever,
Yeah.
in some unseen dimension. But so like when Tobias became a Nothlet, one has to imagine there's some kind of like singularity closing
like a
where
severing.
you lose that,
Yeah.
a severing of Z space. So I don't know.
if you think
maybe
about
like
it,
Tobias's body is floating out
yeah,
in
to
Z
think
space
about it
right
as
now.
like, honestly, it's even sadder than when I thought about it before, and that he was literally physically severed from his human body when this happened.
Yeah. I don't know though. I mean, maybe the energy from the 2-hour time limit goes to keeping that that window open between
maybe.
Z-space.
Wait.
Yeah, I
So
know.
yes, okay. I have a question with what we just introduced. So when Tobias morphed into a red-tailed hawk in the first book, and he was retaining the fact he could morph back to being Tobias again, he was in some way
They would call it, and they
bound-
might call it demorphing.
Yeah.
morphing. Thank you.
In that case.
Yeah.
Well, no, but it's actually, it's an interesting distinction.
Yeah. But so until he got trapped in the form, presumably he was still bound to this human Tobias in Z space.
Yes.
And then,
Yes.
presumably the moment that he became, there was a snipping that happened, the flushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little snipping and a little drifting away in
Yeah.
space.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that Tobias still exists, floating through Z
In
space.
theory, I
presumably.
guess. I mean, they could
And
be
then-
In
destroyed,
Z-space.
but we don't know.
Well, so when he later in the book, spoiler, he obtains his Tobias human morph again, right? Is that a returning of the same Tobias through Z space, or is it a new Tobias?
You know, I can't
So, like,
wait to talk about that when we
I
get
have
to it.
Sorry,
I
okay.
have things to
Because
say about this.
I do too.
Oh,
I do too.
Okay, we'll wait though.
Yeah, because I want to talk about how that is an external acquisition of the self. There's something
That is
remarkable
very poignant,
about that.
but also that he's receiving a copy of himself from before he had the ability to morph. So it's
Yeah, which
technically
is
like a
even wilder.
one-day
He's even
younger version
younger
of Tobias.
Of Tobias.
So it's not an identical version of Tobias.
Everyone's dream, obtaining a younger
Yeah.
version of him.
I want to be one day younger.
I want to be one day younger. It's a
Tobias'
song
song.
from our new Anidorks musical. Yeah.
Wondering, what does Tobias want?
Yeah.
What does he
I
sing
want to
about?
be young.
He wants to be younger.
I want to be one day younger. I want to sing that at my fucking 34th birthday, dude. Like, no joke. I think we have to write that for next year. That's so good. Oh my God.
But it has to be like everyone else keeps assuming. I mean, like figuratively, like, oh, you want to be younger. You want to be younger self. No, specifically, I want to be one day younger.
Specifically one day younger. I think that'd be cool as shit.
And then everybody keeps going, what happened yesterday that you want to undo it? And you keep going, no, it's fine.
No, I just wanna
it's
be-
fine. I tore my anus.
I
It's
just wanna be
fine.
one day-
It's fine. There's no reason.
Nothing.
I mean, to be one day
particular.
younger is like something special about you today, Ed. Are you one day younger? Like, you seem to be glowing. You seem like you're one day younger. All right.
I was just feeling really exfoliated yesterday. Could I get back to that?
You remember yesterday, right after I washed my hair,
to be in that moment.
to be one day younger. Oh Oh man, dude. Okay.
So we get a pretty cute little thing here. First of all, we love a weaponized acquisition. It's been
nobody expects a weaponized acquisition.
Beautiful. And this is where we get the thing about, he's like, you know that thing that people tell you about how raccoons like wash their hands or like wash their food before they eat it?
Before they eat it.
And he's
right.
like, that's not like, what does he say?
By the way, I had never heard that.
I had also never heard that.
It must have been circulating in first grade classes in the 90s.
Not only that, I didn't understand what the raccoon was accomplishing here. Like, I feel like the description is a little vague. Like, it's saying it can feel its prey better where it wants to pick, but I don't understand how holding the prey underwater helps it sense what it's feeling.
No,
something about their hands
sense.
are more sensitive when they're in water
No,
or something.
I don't
it
like
says
it.
the water
I didn't
rushing
like
over
it.
their paws helps them feel. And they say they're trying to dig through the meat for pieces they don't want, presumably like bones. So I don't know if it's heavier in the water, if the muscle is I don't know. I don't know if this is even true. I don't know,
man.
Fact check this
none of it.
all.
So,
you're right about
but yeah,
that.
so
She
he's
sure
being
did say
baptized, which honestly is kind of funny. I didn't think about this, that we have sort of a baptismal
Baptized.
moment where he's being
Yes.
reborn, where he's being dunked into icy water, feeling a raccoon feel the parts of him trying to find the pieces of meat it wanted to pull off. So let's just sit with
Really,
that
it's
for a
kind of
minute.
an apt metaphor for what the Elemist is doing psychologically to him.
Yeah.
This Elemist is implying, like, you're not a human anymore. You're just a bird boy. He's like going around there, digging around his
his
persona,
little
looking for
brain.
that tender
and
meat.
what every
Exactly.
authority figure has done to Tobias so far in his life.
Which is hold him under a small amount of water and flush
They
the toilet.
did. Yes, they gave him
Did give him a
Did get
swirly
swirlies.
back in book 1.
Yeah.
So this is when he's like, I would like, the Elemist is like, do you want your present now or do you want to wait till your birthday? And he's like, I would like it now. And he's like, okay, here you
I want to be 1 day younger.
He's like, excuse me, I'm still a bird. And he's like, correct. And he's like, what? And he's like, of course you're a bird. And he's like, yeah. So are you going to help me? And then he's like, use your power.
I did use your powers.
He says the Andalite gave
And
you
that's
power,
where-
use it. And he's like,
And as
what?
we all know, when you're acquiring a morph, it throws whatever animal you're acquiring the DNA from into a trance-like state, which we learned all the way back in book 1 when we were running away from tigers in the zoo.
Yeah.
When Jake had to weaponize an acquisition onto a tiger.
Yeah. They
Yeah, we all
forget that they
remember.
can do it so often, though. Like, they never think to just like, oh, I should just acquire their DNA and like run.
No, they specifically remember it in low stakes situations. I feel like
Right.
often, like I do.
This
feel
is
like,
pretty high stakes.
That's true. But he has to be prompted.
Yes.
Here, isn't he? The Elemist has big, like, I can't do everything for you, Tobias. Tobias, like, can you do one thing for me? Can you
One
do-
thing, just one thing the way I asked. Like,
Yeah. I have to say, this was the time where I heard about an acquisition where I was like, man, if somebody could just do that to me, I would be
melatonin.
consensually, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
like
just, like, put me to
melatonin,
sleep.
just like Chris, like you seem really hyper, and I'm like, can you hit me with an acquisition?
yeah,
And then
it's
they're just
like,
hand
Eddie,
on
did you
the back
play?
and
Did you play? I was a teenage exocolonist yet.
Not yet. No.
oh, no spoilies. I never.
There's just like
a
a thing that can calm you down that you can talk to, and it's like you can go. It's like, oh yeah, it's because of a thing, and blah blah blah. And there's a whole in-universe reason. And so sometimes you can just walk up to this thing and be like, hey, can you calm me down a little bit? He's like, sure. Like,
The question is, did the Elemist cheat our young Tobias? And the answer is like, maybe kind of, we don't know yet. Maybe the gift comes in 2 parts. I don't know. Like, it saved him in this moment. It's literally the least most he could do in this exact moment. Like, aside from changing everything, I don't know. Maybe it did all right. I'm just saying.
I don't
We
know.
throw a
It
lot of
gets him
flack.
away. Yeah, the raccoon, he starts to morph into a raccoon, and the raccoon obviously gets pretty upset about this and recoils. And he's damaged by recoil, actually. Dealt about 5 damage. Gotta
but
watch
the
out for that.
raccoon kind of is
moves.
described as his waddling off or something like that. And I'm like, that raccoon's like weird, dude.
He also
Fucking
calls him a
weird.
smart, wily old scrapper. And he says he was a smart, wily old scrapper, and he knew better than to hang around in a place where birds turn into raccoons. He waddled away. Oh my God, that's right.
Into
because
the night.
when I read this the first time, I heard, and he waddled away, waddle, waddle. And the duck walked up to the lemonade stand, and he said to the guy running the stand, "Hey,
Does it feel highly implied that Tobias was never a 13-year-old, but always like possibly a 50-something?
He's definitely a fucking weird ass man.
Yeah.
Dude. He is officially like, if there was ever a kid vibe to him, it left in this
Something
book.
about being
he's
an
just-
adult hawk seems to have done something to him, but not in a way
Yeah.
that makes any sense.
it's-
It's like, yeah, you're a 4-year-old hawk, and that's grown up for hawks, I guess, and you've had to live
Yeah,
a
so I
rough
guess you're
life.
old
But
now.
why do you use words like wily old scrapper? Like, yeah, I get that you
was a
turned into a
wily.
hawk, but you didn't turn into an 1880s prospector. Like,
No, Eddie, I need to hear the rest of that. I need to hear the rest of that. I need to hear the rest of that. You think about letting me hear the rest of that while I do this next bit. Hey, why don't we popcorn this next one? I think that'd be fun. All right, cool. Eddie, we'll give you time to think. Eddie, you think about it. Eddie, you think about it.
oh, by the end of it's important though that by the end of the chapter, he realizes he needs to morph back to a hawk to get back to his friends more quickly.
Yes, and that's how he realizes he can now be healed. Chapter 21. As Popcorn Miranda.
Tobias flies back to his friends. He realizes that the Yeerks have reached where they should be. What does that mean? Oh,
Keep going.
So no, I understand what this means.
Yes.
He realizes that the Yeerks have reached where his friends should be. So
Yes.
like, as Tobias flies back to his friends, he realizes that the Yeerks have arrived at their destination early.
Yes.
Okay.
Not should be in an existential
I was testing for reading comprehension. This is like, imagine that these summaries were written
Is
urgently
that why
on
you
the day of
popcorned
recording.
this to me, Chris? Did you popcorn this to me because you didn't understand it? You know, if only I were one day younger.
Hey girl, if I was one day younger, popcorn it back to me.
Okay. The Yeerks are setting fire to the forest, and Popcorn Chris.
Shooting every animal they see. Let's do a little check-in with Eddie. You ready to give me the rest of the read on that line, Ed? All right, back to the summary already in progress. He manages to find the gang. They're all disguised in morph except Axe. They discuss how the Yeerks won't stop until Gerard and Cat and Cat
Gerard Butler.
are dead.
And
Gerard
Cat Dennings.
Butler and Cat Williams, Cat Dennings are dead. Rachel suggests fighting, but no one takes it seriously. They're far outnumbered, and the enemy already knows that they're Popcorn Miranda.
I was about to say it, he doesn't have it up. Pork Bajir. Tobias seems to have an idea, though. If the Yeerks won't stop until Gerard and Cat are dead, maybe the Animorphs can use that against them. Rachel will have to morph
They
Gerard.
can just kill fucking.
Your move.
I've killed your precious Hawk Bashir, Vissa. What'll you do now?
I sacrificed my king. Checkmate.
We've completely lost it at this point.
That's like the moment in season 3 of Sherlock, BBC Sherlock, where Moriarty's like, the game's over, and he just fucking shoots himself.
Oh man! All right, finish the line.
Someone else will have to morph Ket. Tobias volunteers, revealing to everyone that his powers have returned, though he'll stay a bird. Elamists, Axe says, never trust them.
Things really pick up at this point.
So yeah, and one thing that I think about that's interesting about his description of morphing into at the beginning of this book, or I'm sorry, at the beginning of this chapter, he talks a little bit about having morphed and about how unfamiliar it was to be in a different body, which is just a really nice little, like, I'm sure it was unintentional, but it's like he's been in this bird body so long that now it really does feel like home. Like the idea of change, he is acclimated, and there is something foreign about that flexibility.
Right.
Like he seems to have found something in himself in being a bird for so long. Not something that was necessarily true before being a bird, but like, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think it's last chapter he says something about like when he morphs back, he's like, I hadn't had it had only been a little while that I didn't have my wings, but it was really, really weird. So that shows that he's pretty adapted to this body. Another thing that's happening in chapter 22 is that they're starting forest fires. He may realize that at the end of chapter 21.
Yeah. And the forest fires that's
they're
scary
walling
shit. They're
them in
basically
with
just
forest
walling them
fires.
in with forest fires and the Yerks and the
because
Hork-Bajir
also
and the Texans.
The controllers are
where
they're going. There's helicopters shooting Dracon beams down
to start
fires. Forest fires. We didn't really talk about that when we introduced the helicopters. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in this book.
There's a lot.
But
no
motorcycles or Jeeps anymore. For some reason,
No.
they're not
That's
bringing
good.
The Kawasaki's
We've
are
simplified
gone.
in that regard. Yeah, the Yamahas are out of the picture.
You would think if you named the
point-
motorcycle, it would come back again, but no.
I named mine Hoggy. I don't know what to name a
Such a
motorcycle.
cute name for a motorcycle.
Thank you. I'm gonna name my fucking chopper Hoggy. It's just me and Hoggy out here on Route 66. Come by and say hi.
Disgusting. It went from cute to awful.
Stop it! It's me and my little Hoggy.
Sorry, Miranda, please help.
No, you're good. So Tobias is like introducing this plan that's going to involve morphing the Yerks. Or, I'm sorry, the Hork-Bajir. Oh, I've actually gone too far.
Hork-Bajir.
That was chapter 21. In my brain, we'd moved on to chapter 22. I apologize, everybody. We're in chapter 21. Chris was right.
doing
That is the
fine.
chapter we talk about all this. I scrolled too far.
That's okay. There's a lot of good stuff in this chapter.
Yeah,
though.
we
There's
also
really...
see a bird. So, like, also poignant, he's turned back into a bird for the first time, and he sees a bird get shot by a Dracon beam.
Yes, yeah.
Like, that
yeah.
feels
So it's also
deep.
just critical to make it clear that he has to be down in the thick of it with the others. Like, that's what I feel like that is signaling is there's no flying up and out. There's no
Right.
escape that is inherent to him being a bird.
smoke covers
He
him.
is in it with the others.
And
yes.
It's also
it
a problem.
seems to imply that Cassie's been hit by one of the Dracon beams at this point. Not fatally or anything, but she has singed fur.
So critically, you need to also, we should also mention that she is a wolf.
Yes. So Jake is in Tiger Morph. Cassie and Marco are
Yeah.
wolves. And Tobias is still a hawk. Rachel is maybe just is a brown bear. She's a brown bear. I see her now.
And Axe is in Andalite form, yeah? Did we say that? Which I note, he always is, he's almost never, when they're in a combat scenario, in another morph. Axe,
he
who
prefers to
presumably
fight as
could
a-
have the most morphs at this point because he...
But we also know that he
yeah.
probably doesn't have any, like, other
Yes.
morphs.
Yeah. But he tends to use his Andalite form. And why they all can't morph into Andalites to utilize-
nobody ever just morphs Axe so that we can all pretend to be Andalite bandits. But
Yo, that's next level. Eddie's had like 4 big brain moments this session. It's next level. I can't believe we never fucking talked about that. Like that's incredible. I literally think we've never talked about that.
Yeah.
So Tobias arrives. He tells everybody, "Hey, like we're fucked. Shit's fucked." And they tell the Hork-Bajir, and the Hork-Bajir are like, "But we're free now." And they're like, "Right. So like we have to do something." And we're going to do this thing where we're going to trick them is the assumption because they don't give us full details on the plan.
They don't. But what we do know is that part of the plan is that we now have to specifically morph Jara and Ket. We need to be both of them so that we can distract and possibly obfuscate what's happening from our suitors.
Rachel already
pursuers.
has the Jarahami morph.
Right. And this is a critical moment.
Jake says that he'll take Ket's morph, and Tobias interjects and says, "No, I will take Ket's morph." And everyone's like, "What do you mean that you'll morph Ket?"
Rachel says, "You will? You will?" Which I just want to say, a lot of directors have told me, if you say a line 2 times in a row, you got to make them different. You got to make it matter. There has to be a reason you repeated yourself.
Okay, so
well done.
Unless you're just supposed to say you will, you will.
Okay.
now if there's a
But
third,
I guess you could argue they're different.
if there was a third,
You will, you will, you will.
you will here, What would be the delivery?
Ooh, you will? You will? You will.
No, so we've got, you will? You will? You will?
See, you went with escalation. Go ahead. Hit us.
You will? You will? You will.
Yeah,
That's what I was trying to
resignation.
do.
Yeah,
That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
Sad, you will.
Eddie just did it better than me.
No, sad resignation.
Yours had a question mark on the end, an implied question mark, Chris.
No.
That's
no,
good.
no. Mine was, you will. Like, it was like
Odd
it was like a confident,
realization.
like a command. Yeah, like you will.
Oh, I see.
So
Shut up.
So he's like, yeah, I got
mean to say it
morphin
that
powers
way.
again, but I will still be a bird. And they're like, oh no. And he's like, ha, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it's fine. I guess elements really suck shit.
But I love that Rachel morphs the male, and I know she already has the morph, so like that's our reasoning. But like Rachel morphs the male Hork-Bajir, and Tobias morphs the
Tomcat.
female Hork-Bajir. We've talked about Rachel having male morphs in the past, but this is the first time we've had the opportunity for Tobias to take a matching female morph to Rachel's male
good
morph.
catch.
This is
Good
crazy.
catch. It's leveling. It's like putting them in the same world again for a minute, and they haven't been for so long.
One more thing, something that we're setting up here that will play out the rest of the book, basically, is that, so we have Jake and Tobias switching roles. So Jake offers to take this role that he
Yes.
maybe normally would take. Tobias says, no, I'll do it. And what this is going to play out in the coming chapters is that
Yes.
Tobias gets to be involved for once.
Yes.
For the first time in a long time.
And crafted the plan. I mean, he really got in the thick of it. He came up with an idea and threw his weight into it for the first time in a long time. It wasn't just an observation that he gleaned from being removed. Like he got to use that perspective and embody it, which is just it's very cool. It's very cool, and you're absolutely right. But specifically, the role swap with Jake
And the
will
role swap,
come up
yeah,
again.
there are more things I'll say about that as it goes on. Chapter 22. The gang prepares for a plan. That plan isn't explicitly communicated to the reader. Tobias and Rachel are heading for the ravine as Ket and Jara. Jake will be their eyes in the sky as a peregrine falcon. Marco has to be at the ravine as a gorilla. I don't know if we know why he's going there yet.
But it seems to involve catching.
No, we don't. We
But
don't.
it
Just
seems
keep
to involve,
going.
they
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
catching a ball, so he's going to have to do something. There's no time for Tobias to feel sorry for himself, he tells the reader. There's nothing he can do to change his circumstances anyway. Any day he stays alive is a good day for him. Which is that bird mindset coming in, a wild animal mindset of any day I don't die is a good day. It's also something I feel like, people in my family have said to me.
So I will say that it is critical that we mentioned that the ravine has kind of been being mentioned as a feature in little bits. Is that true?
Yes.
Like part of Tobias flying around, we know that there's a ravine nearby.
Because
and
that's
I
the
don't
valley
remember-
that they're going into. Like the entrance is this
Exactly.
ravine.
Exactly. So like that like in the books was somewhat forecast, but it is kind of just this random ravine they keep bringing up until right now. They're like, we're going to use this ravine as some sort of way to do something, which we don't entirely know at this exact
Yeah, I
juncture.
will say, Miranda, that's a great point, but the geography of, and just in general in these books, like the quarry that we talk about a lot, is very vague and fuzzy to me. And so
Yes.
I didn't piece
Yeah.
that together that the ravine had anything to do with.
Yeah.
I guess
Not
maybe it doesn't, but that's how I read it.
It does make sense now that you point that out. It just isn't, the lines, the threads aren't connected, I feel like, or at least they weren't for me.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's also critical. It's worth pointing out, and we'll talk about this more in a little bit, but like it's critical to point out that the like valley that they're heading to could have been totally fabricated by the elements.
That's true.
Like,
They haven't
the way
been
they
there yet. They don't know for sure that it's real.
They know it's, and they, yeah, like for some reason, Tobias has no idea where it is except for the elements intervention. And once we get there, the description of it is very like, elevated. It's very like, this place is perfect.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
literally an example of everything one could
It's all
wish for.
very pre-Google Maps, as far as I remember.
Yes, yes, yeah. Actually, really good point,
Yeah.
because I'm coming at it from the wrong angle. If like Marco is supposed to be catching things, like the way I'm picturing this ravine and the idea of Marco like somehow catching something at the bottom of it, if that's like, I'm like, at this exact juncture, I wasn't clear on what was happening, but the idea of jumping into a gorilla's arms from like a high height felt remarkable. Like, I was just like, I love the image. It sounds
And the effort
painful.
on the part of Marco.
And I appreciate the effort, Marco. I like, but sometimes if you're not helping, you're hurting isn't true.
Yeah.
Sometimes even when you're helping, you're hurting.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So we get Tobias morphing a Hork-Bajir, and we finally get like a good description of a morph of a Hork-Bajir. Rachel's went so fast.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a long one. It's sort of it's not the same kind of body horror. It's a little bit more vague, but it is elaborate.
Yeah.
It's thorough. But it's not as descriptive as some of our previous ones,
I will say,
like the ant.
It raised a question in me because we've talked before. We don't usually talk about like the demorph process. So as all our morphers have been human and axe, feathers appear on their skin before they pop out as feathers. And that feels like it makes a certain amount of sense. But I'm like, for some reason, really bothered by the idea that Tobias's feathers become skin. I feel like he would molt them.
Yeah.
In the morphing process, but then we'd have to like have the conversation about what happens to the feathers and if they go back to Z space or if they stay in this world because they've been molted. Like, and I don't think KA was ready to have that conversation.
It's kind of like the javelins.
But the description, the description of the feathers molding into skin really bothered me because they've never been like, and my hair hardened into a helmet. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. The javelins from the weird javelin fish that was in book 12.
Yeah, we never explained. We wanted answers, and we never got them about what happens to those javelins.
It does raise the question, like, when Rachel's in bear morph and the bear loses a few hairs, what happens to those hairs?
Yeah,
Like,
is there a trace of her? Like, if you were to track that bear through the woods, like, would there'd be evidence of something going through there? The footprints would be there, but would
the
any
CSI crime scene investigators,
if a bear shit in the woods, would it still be there when she morphed back to Rachel? You know what I mean?
It's also true. It's like really interesting too, because we joked about all the morphs being out there in Z space, but it's like that can't be it. Because it's like, you can't just keep a body out in an environment like doing its thing.
But it's not in an environment because it's in some sort of like stasis dimension. It's in a dimension that like...
Yeah, but also that things can exist in.
That's
like,
true.
because they talk about your Marco mass hanging out the window.
Right, but I guess I'm just saying, like, it seems like Zero Space has a certain level of, like, they go into Zero Space, it's anti-space...
I hear that, but I still think there's like a weird spacedness to it where there's some physical quality, but it's also like,
right, but it's not like the vacuum of space where you would just die, is what I'm saying.
Right. But I guess what I'm saying is like, if you're still flipping in or out a body from that space, then it's like, there's a limit on how much matter that can create. I mean, technically, there's just a conservation of energy issue here.
Then no, there's just very much so.
And that's what we're running up against, is that like, at the end of the day, there's a bit of, this just happens.
Yeah.
And so, if we're creating matter, like Miranda posited way back in the thing where she was like worried that people were going to have to eat parts of themselves to survive.
I did say that.
Way back in a mailbag episode.
I did say that.
It's like, that's got not only problematic and traumatic implications for a character, but it's also like, that's creating energy out of seemingly nowhere. Like,
and it also just, I guess the thing I'm now imagining is like, if you have these bodies existing in Z space, it's like there's like an animating consciousness in outside of
why wouldn't your
they
croc
just
morph
screaming?
eat the rest of your morphs?
Yeah.
Are they just screaming? Like, are they? We know nothing about this void. We've never put a sentient being. Well, like, or they don't remember it when they get it back because you morph back to the original state.
God,
so
that would be
might just be in a constant horror that they can't remember when you bring them back.
That would be a cool detail, though, if they were having nightmares about what the other bodies were experiencing.
Yo, dude, that would be so cool.
I just saw this void or something. Like, yeah.
And I don't know what to call it. And then I was summoned back here. And, at the end of this chapter, we get a really neat moment after the switch has happened and Jake is in bird morph doing Tobias's role. And Tobias is, in the action. Rachel and Tobias have a bit of a conversation. Rachel had morphed into a mirror image of me. We were a fine pair of Hork-Bajir. Ready? I asked her. She peered at me from behind alien eyes. You okay, Tobias? Sure, why wouldn't I be? Well, you haven't exactly had a great day, she said. I laughed grimly. I'm a freak of nature, Rachel. Any day I stay alive is a good day for me. And that's what Miranda was saying earlier. But I just like that image coming together of the plan coalescing and like solidifying. And I don't know, there's like a nice little snapping into place that happens at the end of this chapter of what we're about to experience in the rest of the book.
So,
should we try to
chapter
speed
23
through it?
I think we can do it. There's not too much left.
I think, yeah.
I think we can do it. I think we could be. I might have been a little ambitious with 10:15, but I think we could finish by 10:30.
Yeah.
I also think we're just gonna want to hold a little bit on like the more poignant last two. So I think trying to get through the
Yes, agreed. Yeah. So let's see what we can do here. Chapter 23. Tobias and Rachel make their way into the ravine with Jake guiding them. They encounter a pair of Taxons. Tobias is overcome with anger at the sight of them and wants to destroy the Taxons. Rachel manages to get him to control his anger, saying that killing the Taxons won't get back at the Elemist, and it would put the whole gang in danger. A bunch of Hork-Bajir arrive. Tobias and Rachel flee, drawing the enemy towards the ravine. Jake continues to guide their way, though he realizes that the fire is spreading in such a way that will force them to confront the Hork-Bajir head on. I hope you haven't lost all of that anger after all, Rachel says, because they're going to have to fight. And critically, I think also another side point goes back to that being in other bodies thing is unfamiliar for Tobias. Like, I don't know. I don't think the Hork-Bajir has aggression in this case, but yeah, that's an important distinction. It's his anger that he's not getting under control.
It actually would be kind of interesting if he tried to blame the Hork-Bajir, and Rachel's like, I'm not experiencing any of that.
Yeah, he actually can't. But we do have the dominance ritual with Rachel, but that wasn't anger.
Internally, no, they don't do the dominance ritual, do they?
With Rachel way back when.
Okay, I was about to say...
Rachel had to deal with Hork-Bajir instincts, but she did not describe it as anger.
No.
They interpreted
I misunderstood you and thought you were saying Tobias and Rachel did the dominance, and I was like, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
No. But
I wrote about it in my diary. How did I was saying that he can't blame the anger on
and
being
actually,
a
internally, he tries to blame it on sort of this feeling that they don't belong there. And, like, it feels like it's tied to this being his turf. And he's like, they're invading the forest, and this is my forest, and, like, feelings like that. But, like, Rachel very accurately is like, hey, you are mad at the Elemist because the Elemist did a fucked up thing, and, like, we don't have time to deal with that right now. We will deal with it. But, like, you're going to get us all killed if you can't put it aside for right now. And I was, like, really impressed with that, especially because they have very cute bickering at the beginning of the chapter with all three of them, but mostly, like, them and Jake. And just, like, the whole team dynamic feels really good. It's like Marco really got shafted this book, but everybody else, like, the team dynamic reads really, really well.
I also just think Tobias's emotions when he gets to narrate a book, and we've really only had two, so I guess there's not a lot of evidence of this, but I just feel like he gets, like, this book feels, like, emotionally complicated. Like, oh, you're feeling angry right now, and there's actually nothing that we can do with, like, it's actually just going to get in our way. And then also, the other interesting that happens at the end of the chapter is that it's like, oh, that anger actually could be useful just for getting us through these Hork-Bajir. It's not like...
Yeah, just to get through some fighting.
Yeah. I also want to hit when he's talking about the weirdness of being in the Hork-Bajir and sort of driving that and Jake being in his role up in the sky. There's like a thing that's interesting about like, it's kind of like his role defining a distance between, like, he's feeling alien about being in it again in a weird way because he saw himself as always having to be at a distance from it.
Right.
And as someone who, like, struggles with that in my own perceptions of social things, it's like, oh, yeah, you kind of make your distance from everything. Like, you can feel like you're in it, but you can also decide that you're never in it and you're always off into the side. And, like, it's interesting hearing him talk about that a little bit.
That kind of...
And that's all I have for this chapter.
that kind of dovetails with what I wanted to talk about a little bit. Just in that, like, Tobias's role feels like it gets really validated in this chapter. And he gets to learn from their perspective how important the work he's been doing actually is. Especially because, like, they need to...
Like when I started editing the podcast after you stopped editing, I was like, damn, Miranda made this look easy.
And, like, they have to find, like, a place to try to, like, sneak away. And Jake's like, I don't know, everything looks like I'm reading a map up here. I don't know what to tell you. And Tobias is like, okay, look for, like, a ditch or, like, a stream. And, like, so he's even kind of helping do his old job. And he's realizing that, like, not only is it valuable, but it's hard. And, like, that he feels he's been out of it, and being in it this way is definitely different. But, like, it's all... I just feel like it's really good that his role gets validated in that way, because it did feel like he was sidelined
it's very affirming. Yeah, it's like he didn't realize how good he had gotten at it. Like, maybe the reason why he felt inconsequential is because he was remarkably efficient in that role.
Yeah.
Chapter 24?
Chapter 24.
All right. Tobias and Rachel fight their way to the edge of the ravine. They're outnumbered. Tobias ends up on his back, about to be killed, but Jake flies in to his rescue. Popcorn Miranda.
Tobias sees Rachel leap off the cliff, knowing that the fall is hundreds of feet. He is about to leap off himself when Jake warns Tobias that Visser 3 has arrived, standing between Tobias and the ravine. Popcorn Chris.
Tobias charges at Visser 3, hoping to take him off the cliff. How nice would that be if we could just end this all here at Book 13? At the last second, Visser 3 daintily dodges Tobias. Tobias goes flying off the cliff. Wow! Popcorn Miranda.
As he descends, Marco's gorilla arm grabs him and pulls him into the cliffside cave where Rachel is already hiding. They peek down to the bottom of the ravine and see 2 Hork-Bajir, seemingly dead, surrounded by a pack of wolves. Did the Animorphs' plan work? They hear Visser 3 broadcasting to anyone listening. Fools, he shouts. This is what happens to those who oppose the Yeerks.
So this is like a really heightened tension moment. This is like we're facing off with the Hork-Bajir. We got to fight a little bit. There's a moment where like Tobias is pinned to the ground
and his
Jake
leg
has to
doesn't
fly
work
down
anymore.
His leg doesn't work anymore. So like, and Jake has to make a distraction happen so that he has enough time to get up and charge Visser 3. So he swoops down and does the one thing they know to do and goes for the eyes.
Doing the Tobias
and like,
move, yeah.
Yep.
Incidentally, I just can't imagine the internal meetings where they're talking about the dangers of birds from above. Like, it's like, hey, so, you know, you might have heard that people have been coming in with eye patches lately. I just want to show you a quick workplace safety presentation I've thrown together about what to do in the event of a hawk attack. It's been more and more common on this planet.
Happened to their leader this book. It's happened. Like, Visser 3 would be like, guys, I got attacked. My eyes, I'm having trouble seeing today. Make sure you come back. But no, that happens.
I lost my prescription sunglasses. It's just, they knocked him right off my face.
Tobias is just removing contact lenses. That's actually what he's doing.
I'm really relying on my stock eyes today, guys. So if you could just bear with me.
So, as we learn with them being caught and looking over at the seemingly dead Hork-Bajir, the pack of wolves, as they were put, was actually Jake and Cassie. Cassie was already down there with the real Ket Halpak and Jarahami, and Jake flew down and morphed a wolf to come join her to make it look like they were already starting to eat them. It is heavily implied that they kind of did start to eat them to sell this, despite the cliff being over 100 feet.
I would say it gently gnawing, right?
Yeah, but
Gently
like
gnawing, yeah.
But like they're like, it's a good thing that Hork-Bajir can take a lot of pain.
Yeah,
is what they say, and I'm like, oh, that's insane. That's like, oh,
that's insane.
Yeah,
but
that's
also,
like that just doesn't seem necessary.
But also, I was thinking. Sorry, I was thinking about what would happen if they had gotten Alarin over the cliff, right? Or Alarin's body, Visser 3. 1, would Marco have caught them if they'd gone together? 2, if by some miracle Alarin's body with Visser 3 in it survived, I can see that you don't like what I say, Chris. If by some miracle...
No, I'm actually...
You gave a thumbs down.
No, you gave a thumbs down by accident. If by some miracle this body survived and he got down there and realized those Hork-Bajir weren't dead, like... Or even if Alarin's body died and the Yeerk just managed to crawl out and infest something else, like, say, one of those Hork-Bajir, like, their whole plan is totally fucked. So, like, I get that killing Visser 3 would be a really good thing, but I'm wondering if this was, like, too high-risk a move. I don't know that it was right.
It does make sense with Tobias's anger that he's already been...
Motivation, yes, exactly.
And it also does make sense that Ket Halpak would have tried to charge him. Oh, also, crucially, just for fun, as Ket Halpak, or Tobias as Ket Halpak, goes charging over the cliff, he gives a good Ket Halpak free... And is it Ket Halpak or is it Ket Halpak and Durahami? Yeah, it's Ket Halpak and Durahami free as he jumps off the edge of the ravine.
Yeah.
A scream that would have been unusually interrupted and almost like sound like it wasn't getting further and further away at some point.
When he got caught midway down.
Just to be perfectly clear, what happens here is that Rachel as Jarahami and Tobias as Ket Halpak are throwing themselves off of a cliff, but then being pulled in by a gorilla hiding in a cave somewhere below.
On the side of the cliff, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We have been... and then the idea for the illusion is that these Hork-Bajir fell into a place below where wolves were already seemingly waiting for prey to fall to them and immediately starting to feast on their
it's again much like
the
luck we've which we know Visser 3 appreciates.
He really does.
It's he can read the literature in front of him, but he can't separate fact from fiction or intelligent design from nature.
He just respects it.
He also thinks that the wolves should eat them. He's like, we're not going to go get the bodies. The wolves will give them the burial they deserve.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, man, Visser 3, if you just ever did your job once, if you just ever tried, you know?
Yeah, nobody looked as they jumped, I guess. Like,
just like send a hench person down.
Yeah.
To just put a finger on the net. Helicopter.
They're starting forest fires.
Yeah, burn it all.
No trees
They're
here.
just really busy.
I like you would think once they reached the ravine, the helicopters would be hovering outside, casting a light down or something. But no, they're just burning things.
No, yeah. I mean, the ravine is also supposedly huge.
Yeah.
Like they talk about
narrow
laying a whole
though, only 40 feet
skyscraper.
across.
Yeah, but laying a whole skyscraper down into it. They also, Eddie, I don't know if you remember this, but it's very similar to the Gash description of the quarry. I don't want to belabor a point because we have a lot to get to, but the language, Eddie, I think you should read that and get back to us.
The Gash from where?
Oh, it's here.
Which Gash?
The gash from the quarry in book 5.
Yeah, it said it was just like an open gash on the ground.
Yeah, it's like, come with the knife like someone had slashed the earth and made a cut so deep you could throw a skyscraper down it. Pretty suggestive language for Wyatt.
With the way skyscrapers are shaped these days,
Not a banana guard.
Which you keep trying to tell me is a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you keep
Get
saying
a
that's how
lunchbox.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Put your dildos in a lunchbox, Ed. How can I spell it out for you? All right, the point is we're on to chapter 25. Our plan has worked. The Animorphs wander, they collect themselves, heal themselves. The Hork-Bajir just heal naturally, and that's sad. The Animorphs wander on and reach the valley promised by the Ellimist. Jake wonders if it was created by the Ellimist just for the Hork-Bajir. Ket and Jara reveal that they plan to have children and raise them here, which fucking incredible.
Yeah,
the nerve.
They're already planning it.
Yeah. They're like, we're free enough to have a family. That's what I need is like, yeah, I'm not in survival mode. I'm totally relaxed here. I can be a
We
good
think
parent.
it'll really fix our relationship.
It will.
Axe observes that these will be the first Hork-Bajir born into freedom in a long time. Wow, that's actually huge. When everyone else leaves, Tobias remains to help Jara and Ket adjust to their new home. Then he goes to this meadow. So Eddie has a single
His
note
meadow.
in this chapter.
His meadow.
Yes.
Not this meadow. Like, it's just some fucking meadow.
You know I'm dyslexic.
I do know that, but it's his
There's a 2
meadow.
directly before
I'm just
every
saying
one of
it's
these
important.
fonts.
We got to get Comic Sans out here for you. I get it.
Yes, thank you. It's easier for dyslexics to read Comic Sans. I want to be one day younger.
The valley is compared to Eden. We're led to believe that this is some kind of promised land, and it may be a promised land invented for this purpose by the Elemist.
That's how
The
they
description
feel.
of it is unbelievable. I mean, the way, like, Tobias is like, no,
You can hear the Jurassic
no
Park
cap,
theme.
this, yeah. Tobias is like, no shit, this is like perfect. This is exactly what I would have wanted.
It's like,
as
I would
a red
live
tail.
here.
It's so
Yeah.
hard. He said, and he said it's hard to find, hard to get into. They can literally just be here. And they don't think there's any risk of them being found, which is insane.
The logging company hasn't discovered it yet.
Dapson
No.
Logging Company hasn't discovered it. The certainty that it's safe to leave them there is also incredible and palpable.
It's like a big playpen.
Yeah, the stakes of this book are incredible. Like, we now have procreating Hork-Bajir out in the valley.
Yeah, we do. Marco goes right back to being awful.
He immediately starts asking who's the boy and who's the girl.
And tells
in the
Rachel to take her
relationship.
clothes off.
Because it's an Eden.
Well...
Because you get naked in Eden, and it's like, no, that's not how it works. You don't get naked
he
in
does
Eden.
do
You
that.
start
You're
naked
right.
in Eden, and then you
You
put
get
clothes on.
clothed. You put clothes on because you realize you're a jackass,
Yeah.
Marco. Let's be...
And then he's like,
frank
I was just joking around. But really, how do you tell a male from a female? And Durahami does not know these words, which is sort of what Chris was like hinting at. It's like, do they really have this concept? But I think he just actually doesn't know the words. Like, I think they probably have words for this in the Hork-Bajir language because Ket Halpak picks up on it. And she says, Durahami and Ket Halpak different. Durahami have 3 here. She pointed at her horn blades. Ket have 2. That's the only difference? Marco asked. Other difference too, Ket Halpak said primly, but only for Hork-Bajir to know. I like that she's
That
a
got a
proper
laugh.
lady. I love it.
Yeah.
check,
That
check,
got a
check,
laugh.
check.
Even from Axe, which just puzzled the Hork-Bajir even more.
Yeah, she's like,
'Cause-
why is this funny? I feel very, very intensely about bodily privacy.
I am confused about how, like, if that difference has not been spotted with them running around naked, I go to this really hardcore theory that their gonads are actually somewhere inside them and they have to carve themselves open. I know it's intense, but they've been peeling themselves
fun.
open to prove points
There
all
are
fucking... It's fucking metal.
Plenty of
It's fucking
creatures
metal.
that do not have constantly expressed genitals that do not have to slash themselves open to get to them.
I'm not saying I like it, Miranda. I'm saying that's what the text suggests.
Okay.
I mean, earlier in the... Now, do I think it's metal as fuck? Uh-huh.
Yeah,
do I
it
like
would
it?
be
No.
pretty metal.
Do I like metal? No.
It's like, do
love
I
metal?
like
Yeah,
you
of
enough
course.
to rip open my crotch for you? Which is something
you?
that
Tobias
some
book?
people have to ask every time.
And it's a bias book? Kind of sounds like a Tobias book.
I have this funny thing I noticed about. So
I never said the crotch.
That's true.
that's true.
Gonads could be on the ass.
Okay, yeah. They could be. Are Jarahami and Ket Halpak, one, are they grown-ups relative to these kids? And two, they're not teenagers. They're not even in that ambiguous space that
They have
Oh,
to
they-
be.
they're
if they're
adults.
At
They're
mating
having
age.
babies.
They're,
are
yeah.
they our first, other than Mr. 3, continuous, like they have a sustained presence in a book, like the first adults that actually are like characters in these books?
That are like related to the main plot. Yeah, because like
Well,
we
you're
have
forgetting
Marco's
about Chapman.
dad and we have Chapman, but they're like, well, no, Chapman all in book 2 is very
Snake from
important.
Degrassi.
Yeah. Yeah, but I guess on the
Yeah.
hero side, maybe is what I'm.
So
Other than Eileen.
non-antagonists.
Yeah.
Other than Eileen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe.
because
This is our first
Yeah.
friendly adult
yeah,
who's in the fight. Although they're now taking themselves out of the fight.
and they are
but-
still kind of infantilized, or at least they're kind of childlike. Like, yeah.
Yes.
Well, because
Yeah.
of their, we view them, because of the way they communicate.
Because of the
We're not
language
necessarily saying that
difficulties.
they're intellectually inferior. They just communicate in a choppy way.
Though our
Axe kinda says that,
protagonist
but-
kind of even Tobias interprets them that way. It's like they're
yeah,
not
he
the
calls them
brightest.
dumb
bullet.
and
They're definitely-
idiots. Yeah, he's like, he says that a lot, which they
He
prove
also
to be
makes that
perfectly
judgment
fine.
remarkably
Yes,
quickly.
does.
yes, yes.
I think they are the first adults, though. I think that's 100% right. I think these are the first, like, grown-ups in this war we've run into, and we're not looking for guidance from them.
Yeah. But I just think it's interesting because they're constantly, Tobias keeps observing, like, oh, they didn't hug. Like, even like the absence of that kind of thing. They held hands. All these things that the kids are really struggling to do in their respective pairings. Like, they're like, what are they doing? And then they talk about procreating, like having kids. Like, it's like a funny tension. It's like, what are those adults doing? Like, they're doing all these things that we don't really understand or like we're thinking about but aren't acting like they're just like there's a confusing difference there with how they interact. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Chapter 26.
Yeah.
I think we're about done.
Let's do
Yeah.
it.
I mean,
We're gonna finish
Tobias
this
has
book.
some sweet moments about like showing
Well,
them
this-
places they can stay when it's raining or like shelter from whatever. And he goes back to his home, his meadow. The others go back to their homes and he goes to his meadow. And so chapter 26, we cut to the next day. Tobias is avoiding the gang, staying in his meadow. He doesn't want anyone to feel sorry for him. Tobias reflects on how his human life sucks, but that doesn't mean he wants to spend the rest of his life as a bird. He tries to sleep, but when he opens his eyes, he's in a bedroom. Tobias is still a bird, but there's a boy sleeping in the bed before him. He realizes that he is seeing himself as a human. Tobias spies the Star Trek calendar. It's the day before he walked through the construction site. Tobias tells himself to walk through the construction site with Jake.
Tells his child self.
Yeah, tells his
The
other self
bird Tobias.
to walk home with Jake tomorrow through the construction site. And then he tells his human self to go back to sleep. But the human Tobias asks, how could I go back to sleep after this strange dream? I can help, Tobias the bird says. And then he absorbs human Tobias's DNA, putting him into a trance. Don't forget, the Ellimist tells Tobias, 2 hours. Has the Ellimist kept his promise? He asks Tobias. Yes, Tobias says. And are you happy? The Ellimist asks. The chapter ends without an answer.
But the next chapter starts with a hell the fuck yeah, Ellimist guy. No, I'm just kidding. That doesn't happen.
No.
But what a fucking chapter. It's again, it's just so it's a lot of tabula rasa or whatever. It's a lot of like Deus Ex Machina. That's what I mean. It's a lot of like big forces acting here, all loading something that was already monumental in these kids' life of the day that they met Elfangor. And yet this is the twinge of possibly how the Ellimist ensures it from Tobias's direction. In the last book, we got Elfie's being pointed in that direction.
But I also think for me, I think this might be the most poignant moment we've had yet in the series. Like, it's up there. I feel like the only comparable moments would be maybe Marco and his mom, Marco and his dad. But this has just felt so, I don't know. Did this hit you two as hard as, like, it was?
This is
so
super
bittersweet.
hard.
Yeah.
And it also,
Yeah.
it made me think a lot about how Tobias was behaving when they walked through the construction site in book 1 and the fact that he was like looking up at the sky and like things like that. And like, did he maybe kind of remember that a bird had said something to him in his dream and the Ellimist got rid of it later? You know what I mean? Like, like
Oh
we're
my God.
assuming that he doesn't remember this. He's just been
I
subconsciously
don't even know that
influenced, but
like you don't even necessarily
it
need
could
the
just be
elements to scrub his
subconsciously.
brain.
Yeah, it could just be
Yeah.
subconscious influence, but he's looking up specifically. They say he's looking up even before the spaceship lands, and so
Right.
was what he was looking for actually a bird?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then I'm thinking,
Yeah, precisely.
was when he went and they picked bird morphs, was it also he remembering the red-tailed hawk?
Yeah, he remembered.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then he
and he had
picks
like called himself towards this thing.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally intense, and it's one of those things. This paradox, I forget what it is, but it's like if you go back in time to change the future, because the present has already become. If you're in the future and you go back in time, if you're in the present, you go back in time. The conditions that created the present in which you went back in time have to be created by the past. And so whatever you do in the past will like continue to affirm the present. So
Right.
like it ends up being this like little knot where nothing actually could change despite your intentions.
Right. They talk
And
about
so-
that in Lost a whole bunch. It's like what this already happened. We know because we lived to see the future where this like started.
So it really doesn't matter if you're conscious of it. It's like Tobias was going to react to this, but it is crazy to think that he had this weird dream the night before and was like troubled by it and spoke to this thing. He's like, wow, I had this weird dream where I talked to her. And then I meet this person who's my father, and like we have that
which he
weird-
doesn't seem to know. He doesn't seem to
does
tell
not.
him.
But there is this strong attraction between them, and the like this like or attraction, you know, like
Like-
there's this
like
gravitas
magnetic
to their
attraction,
heaviness.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like
But there's also
like-
like there's something about this scene that these bird Tobias and human Tobias are both 12, 13 years old. They're the same age. Not that much time has passed. And
About
yet,
we're coming up on a year. I feel like
Okay.
they're telling us it's over 6 months, but not yet a year.
but emotionally, already Tobias is like old and away for his
Yes.
age. Like he's lived so many experiences that he shouldn't have had to at that age. And then this bird Tobias is somehow feels like an adult almost, like an older child
know.
visiting a younger child. And there's that kind of weight to it and it's also like Tobias, it's almost like he's visiting this moment of trauma and he's having to have compassion for his younger self, you know, like his child
yes,
self.
Yeah.
exactly.
Like, and he
exactly.
is
Like,
compassionate towards him, and we can imagine that Tobias has a lot of, like, he wrestles with his identity and his relationship with himself all the time, and he has this moment where he has to kind of care for younger Tobias, but also is,
but
Yeah.
also accept it.
yeah.
Like
And
yeah,
also
and-
set him up for all the trauma
Yes.
he's about
Yeah.
to get. So it's like a very twisted moment where he's like, I see you, I am you, you are valid, and you're about to go through a lot more. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that that's like even more drawn out by the fact that he reacquires his own DNA, like externally here. Like this just makes clear that he could not have morphed himself. That like all of that's gone, and really any connection to this physical time of himself, which I think we all have with a degree. You know, like. You know, Eddie, you outlined how traumatic his childhood was, but there's something about like when you've gone through something and you remember where you were before it, it's inaccessible despite yourself having so much knowledge of it and you having your memories. It's like there's something other of yourself in remembering how you once were. And I think that that's just like very nicely set up here
Yeah.
and he's going to get himself back, but it's going to be a new himself, even though contradictorily, it is actually his old himself who's even younger than he ever was when he was morphing in the first book.
Yeah.
But
One day younger.
Like, yes, one day younger. But the point is just that like he is going to be a new thing going forward. He can't go back to being that. And his boundaries with returning to that space have been redefined, just like they all have as we've accepted more responsibility in our lives as we've grown up.
right. And at no point does he, and I mean, we don't get much more in this book, but he, you know, the Elemist reminds him of the 2-hour time limit. And he's like, yeah, if I stayed in my old human body, I would be trapped there forever. Never again to morph, never again to be a hawk. never again to fly. And that's when the Ellimist comes in with, have I kept my promise?
Yeah.
And so that's when Tobias is confronted with the reality of the fact that he could not, in the moment he was in talking to the Ellimist about getting what he wants, commit to a life where he couldn't be a hawk again.
Yeah.
And while, yes, technically returning him to his human body and giving him the power to morph would do that, and the Ellimist is theoretically capable of that, this feels so much more meaningful.
Yeah.
And maybe just to us as readers, I'm sure he is, as Tobias
Definitely.
would probably be like, well, I could live with only being a hawk in 2-hour increments, but but it seems like he's gonna get used to the idea of living as a human only in 2-hour increments, because he never brings up the idea that he would just immediately become a human Nautilus, which is something that he totally has the ability to do.
He's too bought into the conflict, I think, the cause.
And so maybe he's thinking, when this war's over, maybe I'll decide to stay in human morph, like he doesn't know his father chose to do when he escaped with Loren. He chose to become a Nautilus and human morph. So maybe that's what he's thinking, that at the end of all this, I'll get to make a decision, but for now I have to keep this power to morph.
And he has a decision to quit being an Animorph, actually, in a way that none of the others do. None of them can be trapped in their human morph, weirdly. I hadn't thought of that.
They can always be guilted with the fact that they have a power they can use. And if he chose to become human, he would no longer have a power he could use for them.
Yeah.
So, like, he could truly leave.
Yeah.
But he doesn't even think about it.
Yeah.
Because what does he do with his human morph?
Well, exactly.
Chapter 27.
We have no summary for this chapter.
It doesn't need one.
but it's not a long
even a page
chapter.
long.
And also my lunch break ended.
Because what he does, the first thing he does with his human morph that we see, I'm sure he tested it out. Somebody probably had to get him some clothes. I was thinking about this. I was like, would he have his morph suit? And then I was like, no, because that connection to Tobias is gone. So, like, you need to wash it, So somebody had to get him some clothes, because
he's kind of pre-morph suit.
He's pre-morph suit. That's what I'm talking about.
I don't think they had morph suit.
Oh, even then in book 1? I thought
they were floating the idea, but like
they didn't have like a morph suit. It was just like if something tight morphs with you. I thought his underwear had morphed with him.
Back then, everyone was always turning away.
Yeah,
so
that's true. They would go. They would like in book 2, I think, or in book 1, they went to that.
But I didn't mean to cut you off.
And they all turned around and then morphed. But yes.
So he morphs a human.
Morphs a human. Somebody brings him clothes.
Tobias morphs.
And he shows up. And he's hanging in the back of an auditorium where they're giving out the Packard Foundation Outstanding Student Award. And he stays in the shadows. But then at the end, when the recipients are coming out to get their rewards, he steps forward and he watches as Rachel notices her friends in the crowd and, reacts to them. She rolls her eyes as Cassie winks at her. She sort of laughs a little as Marco does like a worshipful bow as she passes on stage. And then she looks right at him, right in front of her. And her eyes sweep over him, indifferent, look past him. And then she stops and she turns back and her eyes are wide. And Tobias says,
"Hi, Rachel."
Chris, you continually ruin nice moments. Can we get it again? Can we get a nice reading from Miranda? A nice thing. We have nice things, Chris?
You gotta think about it, Eddie. The kid hasn't talked with a voice box for a year now.
He's squawking constantly. He says, "Sear!"
Wait. I want Miranda to read it 3 times.
3 times?
We have to do 3.
Can the pause be shorter? Because I got really bored in that pause.
Hi,
3
Rachel.
different ways.
Or do you mean hi, Rachel? Or hi, Rachel? Or hi, Rachel?
Hi, Rachel?
See, now that's funny because, I think it's hi, pause, Rachel, right?
Rachel.
Like, your name's Rachel, right? Like,
we used to go to school together, maybe?
We used to go to school.
Tobias has lost his
made me
memories.
freeze my feathers?
New body, who dis?
Actually, same body, old body. Old buddy, actually.
Old buddy, who dis?
As we were talking about that last scene, and I kept having to hold a straight face because we're going through all the nuances of what this means for Tobias, and all I can hear is "one day younger." Like, it ruined it emotionally for me. And then you went into the whole.
I want to be
Rachel.
one day younger.
Oh my god! Hi, Rachel. Well,
I want to be the self I just was. I want to return to the me of yesterday.
I think that would be the me I was, and then everyone's like 5 years ago. No, one day younger.
One day younger.
I'd go back to when I was a child. No, one day younger.
It's really gonna be a banger of a song, but it's also like it's a big drop. It's a big feel scene too. Which
Was it?
These books?
There's a moment where a teacher almost recognizes him and then is like, I don't know that kid.
He's been tardy.
You know what? Frankly, it'll complicate things if I acknowledge that kid's existence right now.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna have to explain why I didn't notice he was gone.
It's so risky. The hall monitor is just like, there he is. Like the
got his ass.
Oh my god.
Like,
The student council president has been tracking his ass down.
Truant,
the bounty hunter.
Truant, they'll say.
Chapman? If Chapman
Oh
is
my
there,
God.
what are they doing? This is so risky.
Yeah.
Why it has to be so short, because they have to just hold in the emotional moment and not the logistical nightmare.
And then I went tee and I ran away.
And then I pulled her ponytail and then ran away.
Oh,
Doorknob.
is Tobias doing like the awkward? Remember when he tries to flap his wings?
Oh, he flaps now and he just gets diagnosed as autistic.
He's looking for thermals.
Oh man.
I was just reading, we were having a big bird migration event around here last weekend, and they said that birds like to migrate at night for calmer air with fewer thermals. And I said, not this bird.
No, we seek the thermals.
Not all birds.
Hashtag not all birds.
I think
Not all thermals.
my favorite book so far, most moved I've been by. I thought Andalite Chronicles was going to do that, but this one, it hurt my heart.
This was a good one. It was a good one.
Yeah, the buy-in with Tobias was real. I think Andalite Chronicles just had too much work to do, and this book, like, really got to capitalize.
It got some payoff,
on-
yeah. I'm really glad also, because I know it's like hotly debated if you do this, then Andalite Chronicles, or Andalite Chronicles, then this. But I really think...
I like the Andalite Chronicles first.
Yeah, I
'cause
think it
this
does
is
the
a better
heavy
ending.
lifting, and then we get to end the saga of the two books with Hi Rachel instead of ending with the revelation that Elfanger's his father. But I feel like both of those are like super valid, cool moments.
Hope.
Yeah.
Obama.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
The point, no, totally. I think, I think Hi Rachel is better. I think also just everything with the main kids is more, it was more interesting.
Yeah.
It's more dynamic. It's more like, this is what the stakes of this are. 'Cause like, I don't know, like, no matter how you spin it to me, you're always just telling me what happened in the Andalite tax and York thing. And like, this is like, we grew up with these guys. We're a whole year older together. It's
Yeah.
just nice.
And sometimes one day younger.
One day younger, yeah.
Yeah, great book.
What do we have next?
Definitely my favorite book so far. We have, do you mind if here, let me grab it. It's right here. This book is about a horse.
Oh, this is the horse cover.
This is the
This
horse
is a good
cover.
one.
This is
Good cover.
Cassie and the horse cover. It is called The Unknown.
Into the unknown.
Do you guys want to try? No, I guess we do the guess the tag. No, we should do the guess the tagline now. Let me look at this. Okay.
I like the tease, yeah.
You want me to give two real ones and a fake one? Okay, let me think.
Wait, two real ones?
Two fake
ones?
taglines.
Does that have two taglines?
Oh, sorry, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. Give me another 20 seconds.
What's it called? You said Into the Unknown. The Unknown. Just the Unknown.
The Unknown. Okay. All right. Here we go. All three. I'm shuffling them up. Here we go. You ready? If the horseshoe fits, ...
Okay, it's not that one.
Not that one.
Never underestimate the power of a morph.
Seems a little long.
Yeah, let's hear the third one.
Saddle up for a wild ride.
Okay, I guess
Yes, it's
2.
number 2.
Yeah, it's number 2. I'm sorry, guys.
You're right,
that was
though.
really
That
hard.
was
It was
hard,
really
yeah.
hard.
Wait, it's seriously
it's the most.
never underestimate the power of a morph?
Yeah.
How are they phoning it in by book 14? Like,
How are they not phoning it in by book 14? Did you just hear the sentence you said?
That's
if
true.
you had to
You
write
wrote
14
one book,
books,
Eddie.
you wrote one book, my guy. Like, it's like, what was, and I'm sorry, what was the little tagline on your book?
I mean, can I
Yeah,
tell you?
I'm sorry, what was it? Yeah.
Where the bullet was? Who's to say? I want to just come up with 14 more.
And here's one, here's where the bullet was. I'll never tell.
Yeah. Wouldn't you like to know?
Thanks for listening to Anidorks. We'll be back soon with lots more to say. Until the Andalites return, or at least until next time. See you soon!